Hello. So, a theme that's been coming up for me recently is safety. Okay. Um, so, I want to talk a little bit about that with regards to healing our nervous system. There's a lot of things that we can do, much like when we're dealing with mental health. We have the top down approach, which is through our thinking, and also the bottom up approach, which is through our body. And the same thing works with our nervous system. There are things that we can do to heal and work on our body to create balance um, within our own chemistry, and everybody's different. Yeah, we know that there are certain things that are inherently good for us or bad for us, but that's going to vary depending on the person and their chemistry as to how that plays out in their life. Okay. So, and we all are starting at a different place. So, like in my work, I meet people where they're at, not with this grand idea in mind of where you need to be. Okay. Because it's not a one and done, it's not an overnight. And sometimes there's things in our life that take priority or precedence over other things. So maybe we're working on health, or I'm trying to think of something specific because health is very broad, right? Um, Maybe we're working on our mindset, but as we're doing so, other things come up for us. So we get a little sidetracked. That doesn't mean we're not still working on our mindset. However, we have to prioritize things. If I'm working on my mindset and I break my leg, well, I'm going to be more focused on healing my leg, right? While working on my mindset and how I perceive that all, right? But in any case, back to safety. Our nervous system doesn't often understand the difference between imminent threat of actual imminent threat in our physicality and our perceived imminent threat, right? So if I feel really triggered, okay, something happens that maybe I have unhealed trauma, an unhealed aspect, and I'm feeling really triggered, my mind isn't going to say, oh, you're safe because there's no grizzly bear chasing you type thing. It's going to react chemically in my body as if there were a grizzly bear chasing me. Okay. So it's really important to incorporate both bottom up and top down approaches when we are trying to work on and heal our nervous system. So if we're feeling really triggered, assess the situation as best as you can. And if you are actually physically safe, then it helps to remind ourselves of that. So I don't know that I've talked much about tapping and meridians, which is all kind of intertwined with acupressure points and acupuncture, which all siphon from, our chakras and our energetic system, as well as our physiological body. It's just kind of how we store energy, if you will. So big pieces with that all link is, yes, energetics, right? So our chakra system, balancing out our energy, but also our fascia, right? Which is our connective tissue that hold everything under our skin together, right? Holds our muscles in place, holds our organs, holds our bone structure. Everything is held together by our fascia. And because the body stores energy and it stores emotions any kind of unhealed trauma tends to get stored in the body. So this is why somatic work can be really helpful in therapy, because you're tapping into your body and how your body is expressing that. It can lead to physical pain. It can also lead to injury, disease, and other things if it's not treated. So there's a lot of different approaches to managing that. But one of the basics that doesn't require adding one more thing to your list, okay, is really, when you're trying to calm yourself down, is just reminding yourself that you're safe. And as I've said before, it's important that you are safe. So we don't want to lie to ourselves. We don't want to pretend that we're safe if we're not, just because, I don't want to say just because it's a lot of becauses. This can be serious stuff. This can be serious stuff. So it's really important not to fake safety. Just because you are afraid of leaving a situation or afraid of the unknown or have been conditioned to be afraid, which is normal with emotional abuse and things of that nature. But if we're in a physically abusive situation, we don't want to pretend that we're not. And we don't want to necessarily try to heal that until we are safe. Because, well, there's a lot that goes with that. So and it's really important that you understand that I'm not saying that as if it's not a big deal. And I'm not saying that as if it's that easy, because oftentimes it's not. There's a lot of barriers. With any kind of healing, there can be a lot of barriers. And whether it's realistically a true barrier as far as like safety, right? Or it's a perceived barrier, it's still a barrier. Okay? Because it's telling you that there's things there that need to heal. And again, when we're looking at where am I starting from, where am I at, whether it's a realistic fear or an irrational fear, which most fear is irrational, it can still be very real for us. So I am not in any means trying to minimize that for anybody, because I've lived it. I know that fear can hold us back. But this is the work. This is the work to help alleviate that, so that we can make logical choices that are aligned with our best and highest good. So with all right, let's presume that we are safe, right? That we are legitimately safe. And we're being triggered by more emotional or mental wounds, things that maybe we have not healed that come up for us, because trauma is basically unprocessed. And this is why triggers can happen that bring us right back to that moment, because it's sitting like a hot potato in our brain. It hasn't been filed away as a lesson yet. It's still there, and that's why it can bring us right back to a moment, or right back to a way of feeling or being. So what helps us to process that and to start, or at least start the process, is to remind ourselves and ground ourselves in the here and now and be present with where we are. So get yourself to a safe place and be able to remind yourself. And you can put your hand on your heart, because that's a meridian right there, and remind yourself, I am safe. I am safe. Okay. Now, there are other things that we can utilize in our environment. Nature is a big one that can really help ground us. Again, though, make sure you're safe. Not the illusion of safety, but the reality of safety. Okay. So when we allow the mind to work with the body, and we're honest with our emotions and what that means for us within our environment, that's a lot of the work. Being present with that and holding yourself in love through that. Okay. So I know in my life, I'm working on multiple things: physically, mentally, emotionally, or the impact that that has emotionally, right? So well, as you know, I've been working on my sleep schedule, which has, like this morning, I just slept in. It's a week I didn't have to get up. And I slept in and I still got up at like 7:22, which may seem late to some people. But for me, I'm really excited about that I just naturally woke up at 7:22 and I felt rested, did my routine, got outside, let that sun hit me. It makes such a huge difference. It's better than a cup of coffee, which is good because I've given up coffee. Because what I have found is coffee makes me more reactive. It doesn't help me to do any of the things that I'm trying to work on right now. And I'm also trying to, right now, I am actually working on getting myself off of antihistamine, which is a more difficult process because I don't know what it was, but with my first pregnancy, my first son, my histamine really got triggered or something. So I usually take like a Zyrtec a day and have for many years. But what that has done is it's kind of offset my receptors, and therefore it's thrown off a little bit of my chemistry around my histamine. So now where I'm trying to kind of wean off of that, I feel it in my body. Like I can get really itchy or things like that. And not to overshare, but I'm just using it as an example. So in those moments where my body flares up, if you will, I used to just run and grab a Benadryl or grab something externally to myself, which only then creates more of the same, right? It's an immediate fix, or appears to be. However, it's feeding the same problem. It's cyclical, right? It's kind of like someone who smokes cigarettes. Immediately, a lot of times I've heard people say, well, I smoke because it helps me with my anxiety. I'm like, actually, it's feeding anxiety. It's just, it gives that illusion that immediately it helps. But all of those chemicals are actually keeping you in a loop. Well, similar. It's just my loop is a little different. It's more with my body, and I'm working on all the things to try and reduce inflammation, just trying to get to a place of homeostasis and balance, right? And it's a process. It's not going to happen one and done. But in any case, when I get itchy or I feel that there's more going on, I sit with that now. I remind myself, because what you tell yourself, every cell in your body really listens to that. It really does. So at least what you mean. Okay. But yeah, what you tell yourself, like, I am. So I've been trying to change some of the things that I say. If I feel tired, I say I feel tired, not I am. Right? So just another example. But in any case, I sit with that now and I remind myself that you are safe, you are calm, you're where you need to be. I ground myself. I also do the things that help offset that. You know, if I'm really hot or it's hot, then I get cooled off. Maybe I take a shower because the temperature can help. I was told that an increase in vitamin C. So if I'm getting itchy, maybe I'll have an orange or whatever works for you. I was told red peppers, oranges, kiwi, you know, some people take a supplement. I'm trying to set myself up for success. Let's put it that way. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of mindfulness. It's a lot of being present so that in those moments I'm making decisions and choices that actually aid me with my goals. So I really wanted to have a coffee today because I love I love the taste of coffee. I love the smell of coffee. So I wanted to have a coffee, but what I have recognized is that whether it's the caffeine or whatever, with regards to my system, that actually makes me more itchy, more inflamed. So I'm like, well, if I'm already dealing with that, how is that setting me up for success? It's not. So I opted not to have a coffee, even though I wanted one. So what's the alternative? Well, I drink more of my water. The water helps hydrate. It just brings down inflammation. It can. I have found that for me. Okay. So you're going to hear a lot of things out there. I know, like, if I'm watching YouTube or something, there's so many advertisements of these quick fix-all type things that you can do and add to your life. Well, it's not going to work for everyone. And some of it is just hack. Some of it's just for likes, right? So be discerning. And like I've always said, work with your medical providers and make sure you trust them. Because if they're not in alignment with you and your values and your beliefs, find someone new. It's work, yeah. It's a little extra work, but it's worth it. It's worth it to care for yourself. And if you don't feel it's worth it, then that's an indication that maybe I don't care for myself as much as I think I do. And in which case, there's work there, right? Anyway, so how you frame things in your mind really matter. Your perceptions matter because it indicates what your belief systems are. And if there's things there that come up for you that you're mindfully aware of and that you're not in congruence with, or that you don't feel resonates for you, then that's indication that there's work there. Work can be fun, especially when you see results. So, and the more results we see by doing this kind of work, the more vested we are. And it's a process. When I started this, it took everything I had just to get out of bed. Okay. And now I'm dealing with things that I was not prepared to deal with back when I started. It's a progression. And I'm sure in another year, I'll be working on things that I didn't think possible right now. Although I try to remind myself to be open to all opportunity. I believe anything is possible. For the most part. You know, but I do. I believe pretty much anything is possible depending on where we're at and what we feel we can do. But it's not a one and done. So understand that what you maybe can't do right now doesn't mean you won't be able to do in the future. One step at a time. But remind yourself. It is important to remind yourself, assuming you are, that you're safe and that you can do the work because you've created a safe place for yourself to be able to do that. But remind your mind when you feel triggered so that it can get back to a place of equilibrium. It can calm down. Because when our minds are not calm, when our emotions are triggered, it can throw off our chemistry, because our body is wired to work with our emotions and our thoughts. So, just an idea. And and nobody's born knowing this stuff necessarily. Some of it is instinctual, but find someone that you trust that you can work with. Because this isn't easy. But it doesn't have to be all hard either. You go at your pace, one step at a time, patience. Sometimes just learning patience is the work. I know it's part of it. I can tell you that. But, one day at a time, you're going to be breathing and living anyway, so make it count. I mean, it counts. I'm just saying, utilize it. Because you're going to be one step closer if you just start working on it. But you got to start where you're at. And it can get very overwhelming if we're only focused on the end goal. Break it down into palatable pieces and track your progress. I journal every day. It's been huge for me. So, and there's multiple ways to do that too, but in any case. All right, if you have any questions, again, this is a rabbit hole of things, because everyone's going to be different as to where their starting point is. But we all have things that we can work on to better ourselves, and that's the goal. It's not to be necessarily better for someone else. It's to be better for you so that life is more joyous and easy for you. And you can more easily create the best life for you, okay? Other people will benefit from that for sure. But this is about you. It's about self-love. It's about self-care. It's about creating your best life. And when we do that, everyone benefits. All right. I'll talk again soon. Bye.